Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day, and we're having a mucking of it all today on Monday as we finish off the weekend, and now we have to get back to the grind, whatever that grind may be. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we've started. And we haven't had any caffeine. We've rolled out of bed, we looked up some headlines, and we're seeing what's happening today on Monday and maybe even on the weekend. So, let's get into those headlines to start this week. Today on Before Coffee, Albanian preliminary election results show socialists ahead.
Good morning and happy Mucking Fun Day from the United States, and where we report massive geomagnetic storm reveals Earth's technological vulnerabilities. Not big words.
Poland once threw its doors open to millions of Ukrainian refugees, but the mood has shifted.
And all of the U.S.'s biggest cities are sinking.
In our culture news, Harry Styles in Berlin. Why is the superstar really in the German capital?
And it's National Nutty Fudge Day. That's right, it's Nutty Fudge Day, May 12th, 2025 on Before Coffee.
I like fudge. I haven't had fudge in a long time. I can't
Nutty fudge.
think of the last time I've had fudge. Fudge is a great word for today, I think. I started my day in a good mood, and then everything on my computer blew up. So now I'm just pissed off my way through the day, I think is what I'm going to do.
Do we still have the wheel? Does the wheel still work?
Of course, we still have the wheel. So let's spin it to find out what fun little segue we're going to do for today's show.
My fun little pen. I'll run and get some coffee and be right back. What are we doing?
Non sequitur is our first segue for today.
Non sequitur.
So let's get started for this first story, which is about Albania. This is from Lazar Semini on AP News. Coming out of Tirana, Albania, preliminary results in Albania's parliamentary election on Monday showed the ruling Socialist Party ahead, with voters supporting the country's uphill effort to join the European Union and Prime Minister Edi Rama's bid for a fourth term. Not a big fan of that personally. I don't think any politician should be having 4 terms, 3 terms maybe. Like almost 10, I don't know how long the terms in Albania is, but if you're almost 10 years ruling a country, I think it's time to stop. For me, 8 sounds like a good number, but I think that's just my American sensibilities having 8 years. With a quarter of votes counted, Rama's left-wing socialists have a 53% of the votes, followed by the opposition center-right Democratic Party-led coalition of Sali Berisha with 35. Oh, that's a pretty big about 20-point difference there. With those numbers, the socialists will get the required 71 seats to govern alone, and likely even more than the previous mandated. Preliminary turnout Sunday was almost 42.16%, or 4% lower than years ago. That's pretty good. As close as you get to 50%, the better. And a lot of countries actually don't get past 50%. There's very few countries, I think, that can even brag about getting 60% of their votes. About 3.7 million eligible voters in Albania and abroad voted to elect 140 lawmakers for a 4-year mandate in the Balkan nation. Because of a mass immigration, the country of 2.8 million people has about 3.7 million eligible voters. For the first time, those in the diaspora, around 191,000, could vote and cast their ballots by mail. Wait, so you're saying before now, the diaspora of Albania couldn't vote? Like, oh yeah, we escaped Albania due to whatever conflict, Soviet Russia, whatever. And, well, you guys are no longer allowed to vote in the election because you guys left the country, but we don't belong anywhere else. We're still Albanians. I don't care.
Well, it's like the United States. You can't vote unless you're white, so...
Yeah. Celibashi, the head of the Central Election Commission, said that Sunday's vote was largely peaceful, with some irregularities involving candidates and some of their supporters that would not negatively impact the result. For the most part, excluding some sporadic cases, the process has been in line with rules and standards, he said on Sunday evening after the voting ended. Sunday, of course, was the 11th of May. Rama's Socialist Party says it can deliver EU membership in 5 years. That's what it promises. In the negotiations until 2027, and wait for approval from each of the EU's 27 member countries until 2030, which is an ambitious pledge while battling conservative opponents with public recommendations and competing promises of pay hikes. Recommendations. Now that is a word I don't think I've ever read. The act of recommending. Well, thanks. A countercharge, a defense in action for divorce in which the party against whom the divorce is sought accuses the party seeking the divorce of equivalent misconduct. Okay, there you go. I think that's what they mean. So, I've never gotten a divorce, so I would never hear the word recommendations. So the conservatives are saying, you caused it, basically American politics, really. You caused these problems. No, you caused these problems. I'm not going to take the blame game. They're playing the blame game. That's what we call it. Recommendations, your word of the week, playing the blame game. Alright, I accidentally pressed the back button. Here we go. Rama, 60, who secured the start of the EU membership negotiations last October, highlighted achievements in infrastructure and justice reform in his campaign. The socialists say they will accelerate a tourism boom and increase foreign visitors from 10 million arrivals in 2024 to 30 million by 2030. By diversifying destinations to the expansion of infrastructure projects, Rama also has pledged pension and pay hikes. Rama's main challenger is Salih Berisha, 80. That they might not be alive the next time there's an election. A former president and prime minister who argues that Albania isn't ready for EU membership. Berisha held an electoral campaign resembling that of convicted felon Trump, also hiring one of his top campaign consultants. So basically, we're glad he didn't win. More than 570 international observers from the Organization for Security, Cooperation in Europe and the Council of Europe monitored the election, highlighting the international community's stake in ensuring a credible and transparent process. But it's successful. Albania has seemed to have avoided any sort of, suspicious activity. And of course, there's people out there who would argue, well, the people we wanted to win won, so it's all good for us. Of course, the EU wants the pro-EU guy to win, so they're going to say everything but correctly during the campaign. But,
the more the merrier, right?
Yeah.
Spread out the wealth.
Socialism sounds like a great dessert for me. But that's my story on the Albanian elections, which is an election we didn't really talk about at all before the weekend. I think maybe I mentioned a little bit, but right now the Romanian election is the one that's kind of having all the drama, and they're going to have their second election, I think, this week. So they're going to have their second election, I think, on next Sunday, on 18th. And that's when we will see who won from that misinformation campaign that was going on in Romania.
I see. Oh, so they have preliminaries and they have the finals, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So, my non sequitur is, elections in Albania. Apparently, Vladimir Putin didn't get the memo because he would have been interfering. But there's still time, Vlad. I'm sure you're right there with your keyboard. Your keyboard warriors are on the job, I'm sure.
He's obviously super focused on Albania's misinformation campaign. I mean, Romania's misinformation campaign. So Albania went under the radar.
Right. Let it slide. Of course, socialism works. You know how I know socialism works? Because every time rich people get in trouble, they go to the government and get money. That's how we know socialism works. People that are against it are for it for themselves. So
I don't want to share that socialist tax money with you.
That's right. I don't want to. I got tax-free loan from the government. I got tax-free loan from the government. I don't have to pay back. Sucks for you, poor people.
Anyway, let's roll our next segue here.
I love how the capitalists will always shit on socialism until they need it. It's my favorite thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or the people that call themselves capitalists have no money whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a capitalist. You're being lied. You're not a capitalist. You're a dummy. You're defending people that own you, right? And you don't even realize you're defending them, and they don't have to worry about you ever again because they've warped your brain into thinking the rich guy's, he's for me, he's on my side. Sure he is.
Yeah, and they're not.
Editorial over.
They don't care about you.
Editorial
I mean, the way you get rich is not caring about anyone else. That's how it works. So.
Yeah. The way you get rich is exploiting poor people. That is the number one way to get rich.
Yep.
And making them feel like they are doing something for themselves when they really aren't. And they can't pay their own bills. And like people in this country get mad if somebody working at McDonald's buys a house. You know, it's like it hurts them individually, right? Yeah. Okay, he works at McDonald's. How can he afford a house? He invested his money. He saved it. I don't know. He gave blood. I don't freaking know. Who cares? It ain't hurting you any. But that's America for you. They think it's a zero-sum game. If my neighbor gets ahead, I get behind. That's how every clown in this country has been taught to think in life. Never mind if all your neighbors are healthy, have good jobs, don't have to struggle.
They're happy.
You're living in a good neighborhood.
Happiness.
You're living in a good neighborhood. Yeah, you have no crime. Think about that. Think of the cost of crime. Think of the cost of crime in this country. Think how little crime there would be if there was no poor people. Think about how much wealth is lost to sickness and crime. And you can combine those two and give everybody free health care, and you'll be like Europe, where people are just like, yeah, I don't have to worry about my health care premiums. I don't have to worry about selecting a doctor.
That's what we determined from the Finland the article, right? Whenever ago. Right, Finland being the happiest country this or last year, and it was like what? Contentness, not having to worry about anything. That's why they're the happiest country. They have a feeling that they're going somewhere in the world instead of just being stuck somewhere.
This is why rich people buy governments so they can get the government's money. That's the reason they do it, and it works. So why would they stop?
Let's go to the next thing. Accurate metaphor and simile is what I rolled.
Okay.
This is the problem when you start drinking coffee this early. You go in your rants really. You start ranting.
Yeah, I'm like a chatty Cathy doll on crack. That's what I am. Anyway, massive geomagnetic storm reveals Earth's technological vulnerabilities. My tongue's getting ahead of me too. This is from Earth.com. Eric Rawls. Space weather rarely makes headlines, but on May 10th, 2024, it became impossible to ignore. That was a whole year ago. That day, a powerful geomagnetic storm battered Earth, disrupting satellites, power grids, and navigation systems. Named for space weather physicist Jennifer Gannon, the storm revealed hidden vulnerabilities and exposed Earth to phenomena previously considered rare. Scientists now pore over data that was collected during the storm as they uncover insights that could reshape our understanding of space weather. A year ago, NASA and over 30 U.S. government agencies gathered for a training exercise. Their mission was to simulate the effects of a geomagnetic storm and assess weaknesses in the existing system. The plan was to run through a hypothetical scenario, finding where our existing processes worked and where they need improvement, says Jamie Favors of the NASA Space Weather Program. It is, as the exercise unfolded, a real geometric storm struck Earth. That's right, a real one, not the freaking exercise, transforming the drill into a full-scale response effort. The Gannon storm, a G5 class geomagnetic event, became the strongest of its kind in over 2 decades. Suddenly, the simulation became real and the consequences were severe. The Gannon storm unleashed chaos on Earth's surface. Electrical grids faced sudden surges as high voltage lines tripped and transformers overheated. In the U.S. Midwest, GPS-guided tractors veered off course. That would suck if it was an airplane, right? If it was landing. Tractor, not so bad. They go maybe 30 miles an hour tops. Compounding problems for farmers who are already battling heavy rains. Of course, you can't keep your tractor going straight. Just turn off the GPS, man. Just drive it manually, you lazy bastards. Jesus. Anyway, god damn. Hire some people to drive your tractors, you cheap bastards. Anyway, not all farms are affected by those who were lost on Average about $17,000 per farm, noted Terry Griffith, a professor of agriculture economics at Kansas State University. Self-driving tractors, man. Trying to bypass humans. Airlines scrambled to reroute transatlantic flight, prioritizing safety as radiation levels spiked. Meanwhile, in the thermosphere, temperatures rocketed to over 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds howled as the nitrogen particles surged higher, driven by intense solar energy. In orbit, satellites battled rising atmospheric drag. NASA's ICESat-2 plummeted in altitude, while CRBE, a CubeSat tasked with radiation monitoring, permanently deorbited. Permanently. It means it's just up there just flying around. Anyway, the European Space Agency Sentinel mission faced power shortages and had to burn fuel to stay in orbit. The ionosphere, Earth's charged upper atmosphere, shifted dramatically during a geomagnetic storm. A dense band of particles typically found over the equator drifted towards the South Pole, creating a vast gap over the equator. Communication systems stuttered as signals struggled to traverse the altered ionospheric landscape. Maybe that's a problem with your laptop. Let's blame it on magnetic forces.
Yeah.
In the magnetosphere, chaos reigned. NASA's MMS and the Themis Artemis missions recorded massive particle waves crashing against the magnetosphere's edge. These waves dumped unprecedented magnetic energy, generating the strongest electrical currents in 2 decades. Solar particles punched through, creating 2 new belts of high-energy particles. CRBE's and REPT-Tile-2's instruments identified the new radiation belts sandwiched between the Van Allen belts. The belts, teamed with high-energy electrons and protons, endangered satellites and space missions. See how easily our crap can go straight to hell? This takes some
Magneto's here.
Storms.
He's coming.
Yeah.
Mutants are real.
Yeah. Just a spike in radiation from the sun and you're all fucked up. Before the storm, CRBE's REPTLE-2 recorded minimal particle activity in the region around L equals 2.5 to 3.5, whatever that means. Afterward, the space became a dense belt of electrons with energy ranging from 1.3 to 5 ME volts. ME, wonder what that stands for. It's got to be some huge
Magnoelectric volts.
It's above gigavolts, I imagine. It's above teravolts.
MeV.
M small e v. This new belt lingered for 2 weeks, challenging assumptions about particle behavior. Oh, okay. The new belt lingered for 2 weeks, challenging the assumptions about particle behavior during geomagnetic storms on Earth. CRBE also detected a proton belt at L equals 2, where protons ranging from 6.8 to 20 MeV congregated. The proton belt remained undisturbed by subsequent storms, suggesting a unique stability. While the electron belt dissipated during the magnetic storm on June 28th, the proton belt endured. Protons have more mass than electrons. Data from the geomagnetic storms. REPTILE-2 high-resolution data provided an unprecedented view of the radiation belts. Before the storm, the region around L equals 2.5 to 3.5 remained relatively quiet. Afterward, it morphed into a bustling zone of 1.3 to 1.3 to 5 MeV electrons, forming a distinct belt. Having trouble with this science? Well, you're not alone. Anyway, the electrons persisted, resisting scattering mechanisms that typically deplete such high-energy particles. Unlike lower-energy electrons, these particles seem to be impervious to the usual wave-particle interactions, potentially including new dimensions in space weather physics, indicating new dimensions in space weather physics. So we discovered a new dimension? Or what are we talking about here? On Earth, auroras appeared in the unexpected location. The Aurora Saurus project received thousands of reports from 55 countries, including sightings in Japan. There, auroras glowed magenta instead of the usual red. Josh Petit of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center commented on the event. It typically needs some special circumstances like we saw last May. A very unique event indeed. Researchers have trace the magenta hue to a blend of red and blue auras. Oxygen and nitrogen molecules, lofted higher than usual, produced these striking colors as they collided with solar particle. Yeah, it looks really pretty while your satellites are being knocked out of orbit, right? Mars bore the brunt of the Ganon storm. NASA's MAVEN orbiter watched the auras rippling across the Martian surface between May 14th and 20th and 24. These auras, unlike those on Earth, engulfed the entire planet. That's right. If you're on Mars, be glad you weren't there on Mars, because it would have sucked. Anyway. In NASA's 2001 Mars Odyssey orbit lost its star camera for nearly an hour and became overwhelmed by solar particles. Why is this? Mars doesn't have a magnetic field, and we do. We're special. Don't ever forget, Earth is special. Mars can't prevent ultra high radiation. On the surface, the Curiosity rover recorded the highest radiation surge since 2012. Solar particles peppered the rover's cameras produced streaks and specks reminiscent of cosmic snow. While the electron belt decayed after June 28th, the proton belt persisted. Reptile 2, which is the other data, showed that the proton levels exceeding 6.8 MeV are rare and dangerous concentration. Protons in this belt remain stable, suggesting minimal loss to collisional processes. For spacecraft in geostationary transfer orbits, this proton belt poses significant risks. Spacecraft must pass through the Van Allen belts multiple times, potentially encountering lethal radiation levels. Further analysis is needed to assess the long-term impact on satellite systems and electronic components. Wow, this goes on for quite a while yet. Okay, we'll try to root this out. Earth's magnetic defenses faced a formidable test during the Ganon storm. Satellites lost altitude, communications faltered, and auroras danced in unexpected skies. Meanwhile, newly formed radiation belts linger in space, posing ongoing threats to spacecraft. The lessons from the Ganon storm are clear. Space weather monitoring systems must evolve to detect and respond to emerging threats. As solar activity increases, future storms may prove even more intense. For now, the radiation belts remain a stark reminder of the sun's unpredictable power. There's your story! The sun ain't going nowhere anytime soon. So this is gonna keep happening. We just
those electrons will be getting charged. Basically, that's what was happening. A lot of electrons get in charge, and that's actually how lightning works. Lightning, electrons, and protons have a little dance in the sky, and
there's your metaphor.
And my metaphor is actually we were all those satellites were able to weather the storm, and they were drenched in chaos from the sun. There you go. There's your metaphors.
Oh, you made it to a pun too. All right, great. All right, the story. And again, when your computer's fucking up or whatever, you just look at the sky and look at
blame the sun. Yeah, way easier that way.
Yeah, we got a sun god, but sun god doesn't care what we think about it. It just does what it does. Anyway, back to you.
All right, rolling the segue wheel for our next story. Haiku. Write me a haiku about Poland and Ukrainian refugees. This is by Vanessa Guerra on AP News. Coming out of Warsaw. The earlier months of 2022, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. Millions of Ukrainians, mostly women and children, fled to Poland, where they met with an extraordinary outpouring of sympathy. Ukrainian flags appeared in windows. Polish volunteers rushed to the border with food, diapers, SIM cards. Some opened their homes to complete strangers. In the face of calamity, Poland became not just the logistical lifeline for Ukraine, but a paragon of human solidarity. Of course, 3 years later, the story is completely different. Poland remains one of Ukraine's staunchest allies, a hub for Western arms deliveries and vocal defender of Kiev's interests. But at home, the tone towards Ukrainians has shifted. Nearly 1 million Ukrainian refugees remain in Poland. Where are they supposed to go? Their houses have been blown up. With roughly 2 million Ukrainian citizens overall in the nation of 38 million people, well, I guess now it would be 40 million, wouldn't it? Many of them arrived before the war as economic migrants. As Poland heads into a presidential election on the 18th of May, with a second round expected in June 1st, the growing fatigue with helping Ukrainians has become so noticeable that some of the candidates have judged they can win more votes by vowing to help less Ukrainians. Good luck when Russia invades you, Poland. The mood of Polish society has changed toward Ukrainian refugees, said Piotr Dulgost, a professor of sociology at Jagiellonian University in Krakow, who has carried out research on the views towards Ukrainians across the Central Europe region. He cited a survey by the Public Opinion Research Center in Warsaw that showed support for helping Ukrainians falling from 94% at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 22 to 57% in 24. I mean, that's gonna happen. It's like when you have a family over. At some point, you want them to go home. You can't just keep on having your family over. Like, oh, I thought you guys were gonna be here for Christmas, and now you're here during summer break too. You're still here. You haven't left. You haven't gone back to your own house. Of course, they don't have a house to go back to, so they've been given a lot of. Yeah, exactly. Many other studies confirm the change in mood, he said. At the same time, it should be remembered that helping refugees after the outbreak of the war was a natural moral reflex, that one should help a neighbor in need. All the more so because Poles remember the crimes committed by Russians against Poles during and after the two wars. Among those who transformed the shift in mood in the campaign politics is conservative candidate Karol Nawrocki, a historian and head of the Institute of National Remembrance, who is in the Law and Justice Party's chosen candidate and one of the frontrunners. Law and Justice, still in government in 22, led the humanitarian response to the crisis along with President Andrzej Duda, a conservative backed by the party who traveled to Kyiv during the war. As Nawrocki seeks to succeed Duda, he's showing ambivalence toward Ukrainians, stressing a need to defend Polish interests above all else. Yeah, well, your interest is that Ukraine doesn't lose the war, because they're coming after you next. Duda and Law and Justice have long admired convicted felon Trump, and Nawrocki, who was welcomed at the White House by Trump on May 1st, has at times used language that echoes the American president's. Ukraine does not treat us as a partner. It behaves in an indecent and ungrateful way in many respects, Nawrocki said in January. In what way? After Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's tense visit to the Oval Office in February, where he got bullied for not wearing a suit, because that's really what's important here. There's people dying and getting killed, but hey, you better wear a suit and look presentable. Nawrocki declared the Ukrainian leader needed to rethink his behavior toward allies. It's just bullshit. It's just peacocking, right? You should be groveling on your knees for us helping you. You know, that's what they're saying.
Right. Be thankful for everything mere pittance we do for you.
I am thankful. Yeah, but you're not showing that you're thankful enough. Why don't you send me flowers every Mother's Day? You're not even a mom. Yeah, that proves it. That proves you're not grateful.
That's probably why Shady Vance, right? That's why Shady Vance killed the Pope, right?
Exactly.
Right? Because the Pope didn't thank him enough. Yeah, Shady Vance said, "You need to thank me, Pope, or I'm going to kill you." And that's what he did. He killed the Pope.
All right. Last month, Nawrocki allegedly vowed that if he wins, he will introduce legislation that would prioritize Polish citizens over Ukrainians when there are waits for medical services or schools. I have a very strong feeling, this is just my gut feeling. I'm not a political ideologue in Poland, but that Polish citizens are already getting the priority in Poland. Just a thought, you know? There's always this idea when there's refugees or immigrants or other non-likable people, they're getting the priority. You mean they're getting any attention, right? What they mean is they're getting 1% of the attention. I want 100. No one's allowed to have any of my percent, okay? So
they haven't hit on the fact of why do people hire immigrants? They work for less and they work harder. That's why.
Yeah, because
it's not really a hard equation to figure out. Right? Yeah. It's like, God damn, I can pay this guy instead of paying 2 workers. Anyway,
So I'm pretty sure, like every single country in the history of at least the West, they all, probably even the East too, they all give priority to their own citizens. There's not a single country that has ever existed that says, you know what, let's care about those other guys, not the people who voted for me and determined whether I get elected.
it's the idiots. That's the
Ukrainians
idiots
can't vote for Polish
We're back to-
politicians, you know? That's all I'm saying. They can't vote for you, so why would you spend any time on it?
We're back to the zero-sum game too.
Yeah.
Again, right?
Polish
You think
citizens
anybody,
must-
even an immigrant gets ahead, it's going to
Yep.
make me life worse somehow.
Yeah,
No, if the
they
immigrants
don't.
come and can't find a job, that's what makes your life worse. If the immigrants can't find a job,
Yeah.
they have no money. That's what's make your life worse.
Because then they're
Anyway,
really taking the money out of the taxes for you. Anyways, before we start going into another rant, Polish citizens must have priority. They do. Now Rocky said in a campaign video, Poland first, Poles first. They've been first. Don't worry about it. Further to the right, candidate Sławomir. Also, I do want to mention that the Netherlands has, for a long time, a huge Polish immigrant population. So I wonder how the Poles feel. You know, if the Netherlands start saying, fuck the Polish, they would be pretty pissed, I'm sure. Further to the right,
Putin's after me. Sucks for you.
candidate Sławomir Mencen and his Confederation Party have gone beyond that. He has blamed Ukrainians for the overburdened schools, inflated housing prices, and accused them of taking advantage of Polish generosity. You can only take advantage of generosity. That's what it's there for.
Exactly.
You don't, somebody doesn't give you generosity and you go, you know, actually, I won't take any advantage of that. I'm actually going to say no and reject it, you know? And then you'd even be,
somebody offers you food, you go, I don't
people
want
that
your
be
food.
pissed
What's
at
wrong
you
with
for that too, right? Oh, you're rejecting my generosity? How dare you? You know, you can't win.
Food ain't good enough for you.
At April 30th rally, a far-right candidate, Grzegorz Braun, and his supporters climbed up the balcony of City Hall in Biała Podlaska and pulled down a Ukrainian flag that had been hanging there since 2022 as an expression of solidarity. The political center is adjusting too. Rafał Trzaskowski, the liberal-minded mayor of Warsaw from Prime Minister Donald Tusk's centrist party, who welcomed Ukrainians to a city in 22, proposed in January that only Ukrainian refugees who work, live, and pay taxes in Poland be granted access to popular 800-plus child benefit, 800 zlotys or $210 per month per child. I have a feeling a majority of Polish people are doing that, so nothing changes, right? You just point out something that could happen and then act like everyone is doing it, and that's how you create a scapegoat. The requirements were already tightened recently, and some refugee advocates described it as concession to far-right narratives. Ukrainian ambassador to Poland Vasyl Bodnar disputes claims that Ukrainians are taking more than they give. About 35,000 receive support without working, he said. Yeah, that's barely nothing, right? They said 2 million currently live in Ukraine, and 35,000 are getting report without working. And I bet you anything, a lot of those are children. Or women with a lot of children, right? It's like, I can't work, I have 5 kids, huh? I need to take care of my kids.
Yeah. They're gonna pay child support.
I hugely doubt any of them are receiving support without working for a good reason, because that's how these things work. You have to be disabled, you have to have proof of your disability, you have to go through rigorous proof that you're disabled for like 6 months, and then they're like, okay, we definitely know you're a real person, you are disabled, and you can't work. Now we'll give you money. Okay, great. I've been eating, packing peanuts for 6 months while waiting for this to go through. But thank you, finally giving me the chance to live. Also, he says these 35,000 receive support that is only a fraction of what Ukrainians contribute in taxes. Ah, yes, the famous, we put in 80% of our income to taxes, but we only get 20% back. You noted that 70% of Ukrainians run businesses now operate in Poland. That's right, 70,000 businesses have opened in Poland, run by Ukrainians, probably also offering jobs to Ukrainian refugees. So they're really not even threatening at all. They made their own little segregated square that you can, because out of necessity.
These people would probably prefer not to be refugees, just in case you feel like you got to blame them for something.
Just think about the idea, you bought a house in a nice place in Ukraine, You know, you had a garden. It took a long time for you to get that house. You had a family. You had a pet. You know, everything was great for you. And then bombs started falling on your house. Yeah, let me leave this that you had 10 years of great memories of and go to Poland where people are telling me I don't put anything in and I take everything out. Ukrainians are helping the Polish economy to develop, he told the Associated Press. This is the Ukrainian ambassador still. Malgorza Boniskowska, president of the Center for International Relations, said that it is normal for tensions to emerge when a large number of people from different cultures suddenly live and work side by side. I agree. And Poles, she added, often find Ukrainians pushy or entitled, and that rubs them the wrong way. But there's still very stable support for helping Ukrainians. We truly believe Ukrainians are Europeans. They are like our brothers. Rafael Pankowski, a socialist who heads Never Again, a group that fights xenophobia. Reminder, for anybody who doesn't know Polish history, they were very anti-Semitic before World War II. They were already treating Jews terribly before World War II even happened. So, unfortunately, in history...
One of the most infamous pogroms in history was in Warsaw. And that was before Hitler.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Poland historically has been famous for xenophobia, so that's why you can't act like, you know, oh yeah, well they were victims. Well, yeah, a lot of the victims died. The xenophobia tracking anti-Ukrainian sentiment from the start of the full-scale war. At first, the far right was very isolated, and in its anti-Ukrainian opinions, he said, "What is happening now this year is harvest time for all those anti-Ukrainian propagandists. Now it goes far beyond the far right," he said. Katerina, a 33-year-old Ukrainian who has lived in Poland for years now, has seen the change up close. In 22, strangers often greeted her with sympathetic looks with the words Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. But then last fall, a man on a tram cursed her for reading a Ukrainian book. This spring, outside Social Security office, another man shoved her and screamed, "No one wants you here!" Such incidents remain rare. Poles and Ukrainians coexisting on friendly terms is still the norm. But she feels incidents were unthinkable 3 years ago. She asked that her last name not be used because she works as a manager in a company that would require to have clearance to be identified publicly. Her parents remain in Ukraine and her brother serves in the army. Like many in her region, she believes Ukrainian resistance is keeping Poland safe by holding the Russians at bay. Tensions now, she worries, only serve Moscow. We must stick together, he said, and I agree. As I've been saying this whole story, the Poles need Ukraine, because as soon as Ukraine collapses, if it does, it's going to be Latvia, it's going to be Lithuania, it's going to be Poland, it's going to be...
There's a piece of land.
God forbid Finland, if they would risk invading Finland, because they're, you know...
They're NATO. They're NATO, right?
They're NATO, so... But Latvia and Lithuania, I believe, aren't NATO, so they're at risk for sure. And if you think everyone around you is going to be invaded and they're not going to invade you next, they're going to risk it. I don't think so. That's my story.
Right. Okay, so my haiku.
About Poland.
Yeah, Poland is also a member of NATO, by the way, so invading them will trigger a
They're not going to get invaded anytime soon, but don't think they aren't going to try. That's all I'm saying. If Russia gets enough allies to be like, we're going to attack NATO, they'll attack Poland first.
Right, and there's parts of Poland that used to be part of the Russian Empire, and that's what Putin wants to
historically, this was part of Russia in 1812. Right.
Okay, back into my haiku. Fascists hate nuance. Thinking simple cures are best. Ban the immigrants! Anyway, there's my haiku.
That will get them. That will fix all your problems.
Oh yeah, the simplest thing in the world. Russia won't invade us. All we gotta do is work with them, right? Make sure their propaganda gets heard and seen everywhere. Yeah. Don't trust the fascists. They will turn on you. For a nickel, they will turn on you. They will sell out their mother for a new pair of shoes. Anyway.
Next segue
for my story
will be reminds me of a song.
Ooh. All right, here's a story from Eureka Alert, eurekalert.org. You ever get that sinking feeling? That's probably because you are sinking. Anyway, all of the biggest U.S. cities are sinking, says the article, but this is not just applied to the U.S. So don't think like you got off easy because you're not in the U.S. Every city is sinking, basically. A new study of the 28 most populous U.S. cities find that all are sinking to one degree or another. These cities include not just those on the coast where relative sea level is a concern, but many in the interior. Furthermore, using new granular data, the study finds that some cities are sinking at different rates in different spots, or sinking in some places and rising in others, potentially reducing stresses that could affect buildings and other infrastructure. Well, the Earth is always changing, don't forget that. Massive ongoing groundwater extraction is the most common cause of these land movements, say the authors, though the other forces at work are in some places. Like, I know in New Jersey, they have a lot of underground mines that were never, discovered until the sinkhole appears. As cities continue to grow, we will see more cities expand into subsiding regions, said lead author Leonard Owenhen, a postdoctoral researcher at Columbia Climate School's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. Over time, this subsistence can produce stresses on the infrastructure that will go past their safety limit. Rapidly subsiding coastal metropolises such as Jakarta, Venice, and New Orleans have already drawn major attention, and multiple recent studies have shown that many places along the U.S. East Coast and elsewhere are subsiding, but most studies have relied on relatively sparse data spread over wide areas to paint a broad picture. Looking at all the U.S. cities with populations exceeding 600,000, the new study uses recent satellite data to map out vertical land movements down to the millimeter in grids measuring just 28 meters, or about 90 feet square. The authors found that 25 of the 28 cities, 2/3 or more of their area is sinking. Overall, about 34 million people live in the affected areas. The fastest sinking city is Houston, with more than 40% of its area subsiding more than 5 millimeters, or 1/5 of an inch per year, and 12% sinking at twice that rate. Some localized spots are going down as much as 5 centimeters or 2 inches per year. The other Texas cities, Fort Worth and Dallas, are not far behind. Some localized fast sinking zones in other places include areas around New York's LaGuardia Airport and parts of Las Vegas, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. San Francisco built on fill, so that's no surprise, I imagine. And plus, it's a coastal city. Coasts are just going to change constantly, as the ground does. But I think the coast just change faster because of the tides. In addition to measuring surface elevation changes, the researchers analyzed county-level groundwater withdrawals for the affected areas. Correlating this with land movements, they determined that groundwater removal for human use was the cause for 80% of overall sinkage. Generally, this happens as water is withdrawn from aquifers made up of fine-grained sediments. Unless the aquifer is replenished, the pore spaces formerly occupied by water can eventually collapse, leading to compaction below and sinkage at the surface.
Everyone loves a giant sinkhole. You know, all those mines in the north as well. Those love water too.
Yeah, they fill with water, they empty, and then they collapse. In Texas, the problem is exacerbated by pumping of oil and gas. And don't forget fracking. Fracking,
everyone's favorite thing to do. You love earthquakes? Fracking's on to you.
Yeah, nah. Fracking doesn't cause anything, say the people that have been, people have been brainwashed by oil and gas industry to thinking, well, at least I got cheap gas. Well, your gas really ain't that cheap. Not really. Anyway. The researchers say that continued population growth and water usage combined with climate-induced droughts in some areas will likely worsen the subsistence in the future. The subsidence, I guess it's called, subsidence in the future. In some areas, natural forces at work, in particular, the weight of the towering ice sheet that occupied much of the interior of North America until about 20,000 years ago, made the land along its edges bulge upward, somewhat like when one squeezes air from a part of a balloon to another. Even today, when the ice is long gone, some of these bulges are still subsiding at the rates of 1 to 3 millimeters per year. Affected cities include New York, Indianapolis, Nashville, Philadelphia, Denver, Chicago, and Portland. Chicago, famously, was built, the whole city was built, and then they had to raise it, one building at a time. Over 100 years ago. They had to raise it because they had to put some infrastructure underneath all the buildings, like sewers, stuff like that. And then Chicago, of course, Chicago has a raised train system. It's called the elevated trains.
Yeah.
Anyway, little side story about Chicago, and it has always been kind of sinking. Even the sheer weight of buildings may be taking its toll. One 2023 study found that New York's more than 1 million buildings. New York has more than 1 million buildings. I think we're talking about Manhattan, or we're talking about Greater New York. But anyway,
yeah,
are pressing down on
probably
Earth's...
Manhattan or the city, right?
And it's probably 5 boroughs, maybe.
Yeah, as well.
A lot of buildings. Just Manhattan,
but we're
right?
definitely talking about just the city, not the entire state, because the state definitely has way more than that.
I don't know. It's not specific. It says New York. It could mean the state, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a city. But more than 1 million buildings are pressing down Earth so hard they may be contributing to the city's ongoing subsidence. I think that's the word. How you pronounce it? A more recent study found that some buildings in Miami are sinking in part due to disruptions in the subsurface caused by construction of newer buildings nearby. The new study found that 8 cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Houston, Philadelphia, San Antonio, and Dallas, account for more than 60% of the people living on sinking land. And notably, these 8 cities have seen more than 90 significant floods since 2000, probably driven in part by lowering topography. Another key finding, some cities are seeing differential motion, while adjoining localities sinking at different rates, or even sinking while other areas rise. The upward motion possibly caused by quick recharge of aquifers near rivers and other water sources. Uplift in certain areas is actually more than compensating for the overall sinkage in 3 cities: Jacksonville, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, and San Jose, California. Differential motion is a problem because, as the authors point out, if a whole urban area is moving up or down evenly at the same time, that minimizes the dangerous stress to buildings, foundation, and other infrastructures. But if structures are subjected to the array of uneven vertical movements, they can experience dangerous tilting. Unlike flood-related subsidence hazard, where risks manifest only when high rates of subsidence lower the land elevation below a critical threshold, subsidence-induced infrastructure damage can occur even with minor changes in land motion, the authors write. The study found that only 1% of the total land area in the 28 cities lies within zones where differential motion could affect the buildings, roads, rail lines, and other structure. However, these areas tend to be in the densest urban cores and currently contain some 29,000 buildings. The most hazardous cities in this regard are San Antonio, where the researchers say that 1 in 45 buildings are subjected to high risk. Austin, 1 in 71, Fort Worth, 1 in 43, and Memphis, 1 in 167. So Memphis is on the Mississippi River, and it's on a bluff. It's on a high bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. So I think that's probably part of the problem. And it's already rising. It's just going to keep going down, and it's going to have these zones where there's different levels of sinking, and your building's going to get tilted. So, sorry, San Antonio, you're the worst. But Austin and Fort Worth and Memphis are also pretty bad for that. So building people have to go look at their building and say, hey, is my foundation still level? And then maybe do some adjustments. I don't know. The upshot for individual structures in these areas is unclear. It probably would require even finer grained study, said O'Henhen. His name is O'Henhen. An earlier study of 225 U.S. building collapses between 1989 and 2000 found that only 2% were directly attributable to subsidence. I keep saying subsistence. However, the factors behind the 30% were designated unknown, suggesting that subsidence could have played a larger role, says the new study. The paper concludes that the city should use this new information to focus on solutions. They say that in many places, flooding can be mitigated with land rising and enhanced drainage systems and green infrastructure. Each has artificial wetlands, such as artificial wetlands to absorb floodwaters. Cities susceptible to tilting hazards can focus on retrofitting existing structures, integrating land motions into building codes, and limiting new building in the areas of most threat. As opposed to just saying it's a problem, we can respond, address, mitigate, adapt, said O'Henhen. We have to move to solutions. The study was co-authored by researchers from Virginia Tech, the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, or NOASR, University of California, Berkeley, Texas A&M University, University of Colorado Boulder, Brown University, and United Nations University. Those are sinking nose. So if you go outside and you take a step and, it's a little bit lower than it was yesterday. That's why. There's your sorry. I hope you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Put you to sleep. All right, then.
The water's, I know all about this water rising business, living underwater myself. Of course, the song this reminds me of is Blondie's hit track, The Tide is High, so I'm holding on. I'm gonna be your number one. Pit to sink in because there's only so much water. Aquifers are emptying. All right, there you go. Tide is High by Blondie. I'm sure that was originally by somebody else. I think it's probably originally some sort of reggae song.
It's a reggae song. Yeah, it's a reggae remake. I was laying on
probably a folk reggae song. You know, everyone knows that song, but Blondie got famous for it. That's one of their big hits. Paragons of the Jamaican, the Paragons. The Jamaican group, the Paragons. That was who you could attribute it to. But Blondie, I think, is really popular as a track. And let's roll the wheel for another segue.
Blondie, the punk band that had a disco hit with Heart of Glass.
Really? Okay.
And they had the first number one, and they also had the first number one rap song. So there you go. Blondie, I'm serious, right? They're a punk band. They had a disco number one hit, and then they had a number one hit with a rap song. That's crazy, right?
Pretty cool. Alliteration headline will be our next segue, which we're going to talk about Harry Styles. Speaking of famous pop stars.
Alliteration.
Harry Styles is in Berlin. Why, though, is the mystery. Is Harry Styles now living, though this is on Uranus Culture by David Marquand. Is Harry Styles now living in Berlin? According to the German daily tabloid Bild, the British singer has bought a flat in the capital, and TikTok users report having spotted him in Berlin Mitte. Dressed in blue, friendly, generous, he is even said to have paid for taxis for strangers. That's bizarre. That mean. But why is Harry Styles really in Berlin? A source revealed that Britain's The Sun newspaper, a tabloid basically, that the pop star is currently working on a new album. And why Berlin of all places? Well, they make great music in Berlin, so. Styles was following in the footsteps of one of Britain's greatest music legends, David Bowie. The singer has been spotted several times. Producer Kid Harpoon, the man behind his hit album Harry's House from 2022, including the global number one hit As It Was, the best-selling song of the year worldwide. Harry wanted to take a break after the mega success of his last tour and release of Harry's House, says the inside source. Now he's working hard on his next album. And like Bowie once did, Berlin seems to inspire him. Harry loves the mysterious, just like Bowie used to. David Bowie's Berlin, a city that shapes legend. He lived in Berlin in Schöneberg neighborhood between 1976 and 1978. Man, we should have gone there to that place he lived. And gone, he used to live there. At a time that shamed him both musically and personally. His iconic song Heroes. Yeah. The iconic song Heroes, inspired by a pair of lovers at the Berlin Wall, was written during this period. Of course, the Berlin Wall was still up in the 1970s. Berlin was a place of retreat for Bowie, far away from the cameras in London and Los Angeles, and far away from the addiction problems that increasingly burdened him. Together with Iggy Pop, he lived in a small flat at 155 Hauptstraße painted. Hauptstraße. I don't know German. I'm sorry. Painted, composed, and sought peace and quiet there at 155. I think Bowie wanted to find himself again in Berlin, and he succeeded, says director Francis Waitley, who produced the documentary Bowie in Berlin. Of his so-called Berlin trilogy, Heroes is probably the best known. It's also worth mentioning that atmospheric instrumental pieces like Nicole, with the only one eye, which has been described by critics as a picture of the mood. Bowie remained connected in the city. In 1987, he returned to play a live concert in West Berlin, so close to the border that many East Berliners gathered along the wall to listen. I think I remember that. That was a pretty famous event. Bowie heard people on the other side singing along and later called it one of the most emotional performances I've ever experienced. Bowie also produced the entire soundtrack to the iconic Berlin film Christian F. Weirkinder vom Bahnhof Zoo, which tells the story of a drug-addicted teenagers from Großstadt. I don't know how to say German words. I know how to say it in Dutch. It's not the same, though. I already know I'm pronouncing it wrong because I'm trying to say it like it's Dutch. Is Harry Styles following in Bowie's footsteps? The comparison is obvious. Like Bowie, Styles breaks with gender norms in fashion, wearing skirts, pearl necklaces, and silk blouses. But not everyone is convinced. I thought he was more going for the Jagger inspiration, but I guess you can be inspired by multiple. Bowie's performer producer criticized the attempt to sell Styles as a modern Bowie, suggesting that context and zeitgeist were too different. That's true. The 70s and 80s is very different from the 20s. Styles himself, however,
Bowie
has
was
repeatedly
androgynous.
Huh?
Bowie was androgynous, so I don't even know how to compare him to Bowie.
Yeah.
You looked at Bowie in concert. You went to a Bowie concert. You know there was a man or a woman up there.
Yeah,
and you're halfway through.
I mean,
if you
Harry
didn't know who he
Styles has
was,
worn skirts, has attempted to wear skirts.
Oh, okay.
But the thing with Harry Styles is that he came out as a boy band, right? So he can never be detached from that boy-ish identity because he was in a boy band. Styles himself has repeatedly described Bowie as a role model, as an absolute hero and can do no wrong. Does he consciously place himself in Bowie's tradition? Perhaps. But Berlin today is no longer the Berlin of yesteryear. While Bowie was able to live almost anonymously in Schoneberg, Schoneberg is probably how you say it, Styles is unlikely to go unnoticed for long in Mitte. Apparently most Berliners know who Bowie was and didn't care. Perhaps Styles, who has already been spotted in Berlin without bodyguards, is hoping for the same kind of anonymity. I think if he wants that, he should move to the Netherlands. The Netherlands is famous for not giving a shit about famous people. I think there was even a video of, was it Harry Styles? Or was it Tom Holland? Somebody, a famous British guy, was just taking a run through Amsterdam. And no one gave a shit. The only people who gave a shit, which is why we have video footage of it, is two girls, because they were like, there's like a huge crowd at the end of the street. You might want to avoid that crowd, just in case they're like here to attack you or whatever, because you're a famous person.
Yeah, right.
So they said you should avoid that and you should go that way instead. And that's what Dutch people do to famous people, right? They just treat them like normal people, except obviously they're aware they're famous, but they're not going to pester them like some other places would, chase them down the street.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder how it was like for the Beatles to be in Amsterdam, for example. If they had a similar experience, or the 1960s were just as crazy.
I know that's one of the first place John and Yoko went when they got married.
Really?
It's in the song.
Oh yeah. Well, no, didn't they do the thing at the hotel? That's where they did the thing in the hotel in Amsterdam.
The Amsterdam Hilton. It's in the song. They were in the bed-in. That was famous bed-in took place in Amsterdam Hilton. They laid in bed and talked to reporters. Anyway, sorry.
Well, supposedly they took a canal cruise in Amsterdam in 1964. That's all I can find. Obviously, they'd have to do an actual research, but the story's over.
No,
that's the end.
He didn't know Yoko in 1964. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But that's the end of the story, really. It's just a little, in the comments, let us know what you think. Your theories on why. Is he gonna react to that if Bowie is revealed to be a person he thought he was? Oh yeah. That's the lyrics of one of Harry Styles' songs. Very clever. I didn't know you listened to Harry Styles, Wonka. Very interesting. But I think there's people who have inspirations and they go to places. That's my theory. Is you want to get into, maybe you're really deep into being inspired by this person and their art. You want to go into the mindset of what they were feeling at the time. And maybe you walk around and you, this isn't what it was like for Bowie to be in Berlin, because like I said, the wall was still up back then. Totally different now. Yeah, you can still see signs of East Berlin versus West Berlin, but for the most part, right, people can go where they want and they're not stuck behind a wall. So that's going to change everyone's attitude. Just significant
changes.
Yeah, changes. But there's my story. Give me my alliteration.
Do you know what color? His house is in Berlin? Do you have any chance?
The color of Bowie's house where he stayed? No, I have no idea.
No, Harry Styles' house.
Harry Styles. Oh, they didn't give me an address. See, that's the difference as well.
Okay.
They can't give you an address. If they give you an address.
We're gonna make up a detail. We're gonna say it's a blue house. So.
Yeah, he was dressed in blue. So.
There we go. British balladeer beds in blue Berlin bungalow. That got 6.
I would love to see a Berlin bungalow. That would be really interesting.
I believe Hitler had a bungalow in Berlin. I could have done Isle Harry. Right?
Isle Harry. That's a bit more dark, isn't it? Though. Or I'll think of a hypothetical for your next story. This day in history. Sure, there'll be a lot in there.
This day in history is none of this hypothetical because it happened. So, May 12th in this day, we're gonna dial back all the way back to, okay, we're only going back to 1780. In 1780, during the American Revolution, Major General Benjamin Lincoln of the Continental Army was forced to surrender 7,000 troops at Charleston, South Carolina. I wonder if it's related to Abraham Lincoln. Maybe I can look that up. But Lincoln, there was a Lincoln who was a general in the American Revolution.
Yeah, Lincoln is not a... Well, no, maybe it is a popular name. I have no idea.
I don't think so. I've never heard of anybody named Lincoln besides the president. 1820, English nurse Florence Nightingale, who founded trained nursing as a professional for women, was born in Florence, Italy. Her name is Florence, and she was born in Florence. International Nurses Day is celebrated on her birthday. So there's your hint on what today is. And by the way, I don't have a video for you. I completely overlooked that part of today's show.
Oh, I'll find something.
So maybe. Okay. In 1846, the ill-fated Donner Party left for Independence, Missouri for California. Months later, the group became trapped in the Sierra Nevada, and some members reportedly resorted to cannibalism when the food ran out. Famously, the famous Donner Party that everybody brings up when they talk about cannibalism. 1925, American baseball player, manager, and coach Yogi Berra was born in St. Louis, Missouri. Yogi Berra came up with many famous sayings. Let me think if I can come up with a few yogiisms. One yogiism, when he was told about a nightclub, he said to the guy in his team, he said, "Oh, nobody goes to that nightclub anymore. It's too crowded." That's a yogiism. It makes absolutely no sense. He also the one that said it ain't over until it's over. When he was trying to say it ain't over till the fat lady sings, he couldn't think of it, so he said, "It ain't over till it's over," which is true. It ain't over till it's over. So Yogi Berra, many famous sayings. Also said about a player, his limitations are limitless. Think about that one. Anyway. What? Try to figure that one out. Anyway. 1937, George VI of the United Kingdom was crowned following the abdication of Edward VIII, who was a Nazi sympathizer. We're talking all about Nazis today. Speaking of Nazis, Edward VIII basically moved to Germany after that. In 1949, the Soviet Union lifted his block. Yeah, he was a forerunner of Harry Styles. He moved to Germany. Anyway. 1949, the Soviet Union lifted his blockade of Berlin. Speaking of Berlin, Berlin's all over the news today, by the way. So yeah, the Berlin blockade, which we had to fly over because Berlin was starving an entire city. I'm sorry, the Russians were starving an entire city. The Soviets, I should say. In 1972, the British rock group The Rolling Stones released Exile on Main Street, a double album that's considered one of their defining works. Not a big fan of Exile on Main Street. I'm sorry, never done it for me. There's a couple of good songs on it, but I listen to it and it's like,
Hipster alert!
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's like, how does it make me a hipster? I'm like, to me, that's a hipster
album.
It's just a joke. No rehearsals. They have like no rehearsals, instruments out of tune, out of sync songs, and everybody's like, "It's brilliant!" And it's like, "Oh yeah, just take any rock band and do not rehearse any of the songs and just play them and then record an album and just go on to the next thing." That's what that was. And I'm like,
well,
yeah.
it was definitely a risk they took.
Yeah, and of course, all the critics say that's their best album. I'm like, no. Sticky Fingers is their best album, and they're even close second. And I wouldn't even put Exile on Main Street in the top 5 for their best albums, quite frankly. And anyway, I would take Let It Bleed over that. I would take Beggar's Banquet over it. I would definitely take Sticky Fingers over it. I would take Some Girls over it, right? Which is recorded in 78. Not a big fan of Exile on Main Street. In 2008, a massive earthquake struck Sichuan province in Canada, causing great destruction and killing some 90,000 people. Oh my God. 90,000 people dying like within hours of each other. It's just horrible. Imagine that devastation. As Earth don't give a flying you-know-what about what we're doing on a daily basis. It just does its thing. It's George Carlin's birthday today. I wish I would have had loaded a George Carlin video.
Oh,
damn it.
Yeah.
All right, our featured event this day in history, May 12th, is 1926. Our featured event is first flight over the North Pole aboard the semi-rigid airship Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, American scientist Lincoln Ellsworth, and Italian engineer Umberto Nobile made the first undisputed flight over North Pole on this day in 1926. Undisputed, as in a bunch of other people did it, but they lied about it, right? Our feature biography.
This is the only guy who had the cameras on to prove it.
Katharine Hepburn's birthday today. American actress, born May 12th, 1907. She would be 118 if she was around today. Wow. Katharine Hepburn, one of them, she lived a long time. She got to be 96. She died June 29th, 2003 in Saybrook, Connecticut. One of your most famous American actors who I always thought was British because of the way she talked. But she was born in New England, which makes sense. New England never really completely dropped their British accent.
Yeah, she always had something, a weird twang in her voice that you're like, that's not normal.
Like Britain, New England does not pronounce their R's. So they skip
some accents, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, parts of England don't pronounce any letters, like Cockney, but they don't pronounce K's and T's, right? Like Cockney, right? You never hear a T in Cockney, like vernacular. Other birthdays today: Burt Bacharach, American songwriter and pianist, born in 1928. I said pianist. Thank you very much. Oh, you dirty-minded people out there. Anyway, George Carlin's birthday today. He would be 88 if he was still around. George was probably the funniest person in the history of the world. Humorist, American comedian, and more than that, a philosopher. And he normally got things right, either whether we wanted to hear him or not. Tony Hawk, American skateboarder, born in 1968. So Tony Hawk is 57. Yeah, skateboarders get old too. And 1975, it's the 50th birthday of Jonah Lomu, New England Rugby Union football player. I have a feeling he's an Aborigine of New Zealand, right? Because there's the best players are all, right? The one tribe in New Zealand that does the cheer. What's that cheer again?
What cheer?
My New Zealander.
The haka?
The rugby cheer. Yeah, the haka.
I wouldn't call it a cheer. It's a war song that they made into it. I mean, like you said, sports is war, imitation of war. It's a war song. It's a war fighting. You do it before battle to scare the enemy so that they don't want to fight you.
New Zealand. It's New Zealand, right? I didn't get this country wrong.
The All Blacks in rugby. They do it before for a match.
So, anyway, it's that guy's birthday. He's turning 50. Way to go. Made it to 50. I did that. National Day Calendar. So to round up the days we are today. It's National Sapphire Segula Day. I don't know what a segula is. I know what sapphire is. It's National
Gratitude for a single person of
Fibromyalgia
special
Day.
needs or children to remind them that their service and sacrifices of loved one are seen and appreciated. So, if you're a single parent that takes care of also a child with special needs, then this is your day.
Right. You want to look up fibromyalgia for me too? FIBROMYALAGIA.
Fibromyalgia.
Because that's one of them disease. Yeah, fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia.
It's National Women's Checkup Day, it's National Odometer Day, and National Nutty Fudge Day. So, yeah, National Odometer Day. Look at your odometer, I guess. You know, it's that little thing that says how many miles are on your car, and you go, wow, it's time to change my oil. Wow, this car's 100,000 miles on it. I'm surprised
That also indicated your gear shifting. And I don't know. I don't drive.
No, the odometer, no, that would be the tachometer. The
tachometer
tells you
I
how
see.
many RPMs.
I thought the whole thing was called the odometer, I guess. I thought the whole...
No, it's just when you watch the tachometer when it gets up to, I believe it's 3,000 RPM. I don't drive manual.
That's when you want to change your
sure.
gears. Yeah.
That's when you shift to a higher gear, so you're not just running your engine at higher RPMs. Anyway.
Fibromyalgia is a musculoskeletal syndrome and causes a variety of symptoms, including pain, tender points, fatigue, anxiety, depression, you know, all the things. It can last a few hours or a day or a week or a month or a year. There's no cure for it. There are treatments for it. I think famously a lot of people who have fibromyalgia have a lot of mucus in their body. And they have to get like they have to get something to like a sonar-based vibration in their chest to free all of that mucus, and they cough it up. That's what I've famously seen when it's depicted in media for fibromyalgia. The neurological immunological disease. So your body.
I bet just
Huh?
I bet it's caused by microplastics.
I mean, probably that they don't. You can't really determine what causes it. You know, it's all science, right? But it's not factual. But it's
my non-scientific.
Yeah.
My non-scientific.
Probably.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's probably caused by something.
There's your days for today. There's your days for today. Your mispronunciations, your world events, your news from above. The magnetic field above and the ground below, we're just sinking into sinkholes. Or May 12th, 2025 on Before Nutty Fudge.
And of course, in my hypothetical scenario, we'll be sinking soon, I think, into the Earth. The Earth will capture us all in the end.
We're done.
There's your hypothetical for that. Just think about that and stop messing up the planet. There's also a lot of UN international observances. I forgot to cover Saturdays on Friday, so I'll cover Saturdays. On Saturday, I think we covered this, or maybe we didn't. No, I don't remember covering
yesterday was Mother's Day, too. Yesterday was Mother's Day.
In certain countries, it was Mother's Day. I actually found this out recently. That a lot of places have different dates for Mother's Day. For the Netherlands and the US, it was Mother's Day, and I did wish my mom a happy Mother's Day. On Saturday, it was World Migratory Bird Day. So that was, of course, like those people we had a couple articles back helping the birds fly. The Americas, African Eurasians, and the East Asian to Australian flyway. Those are the 3 different places that birds fly through globally, north to south. They're all going, I think, south. They're going north now because it's hot, or they're going south now because it's cold. One of those things is happening. It's time for the birds to make babies, and then they're going to fly back during the winter. Something like that. Don't remember.
That's right.
I'm not a bird scientist.
The geese fly north in the spring. They fly to where it's warmer in the spring.
Exactly. So they're going all to the warm place.
Yeah, they can't do a lot of breeding. Well, they might do some breeding in the south. I don't know. It depends on the species.
It's also International Day, I should say, the May 10th was International Day Argania, which is a type of tree that famously goats sit on. If you've ever seen goats sitting on trees, this is the Argania, the sub-Saharan region of Morocco. It's famous for this tree. It grows in arid and semi-arid areas. Its defining species of woodland ecosystem known as the Arganaree, which is rich in endemic flora. It's resilient to harsh environment underwater, scarcity and risk of erosion for soil. So that's a great tree
always
for
feel like
as
the
we
goats.
slowly enter climate doom. That's a great tree for you there to live through.
I think I got a feeling I'm part goat. I think I'm part goat because I like to climb and look over the landscape wherever I am.
I think that's just the monkey in you, not the goat.
Well, you know what they say. Everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey.
Yeah. It's also today, actually, 12th of May is Vesak Day. Vesak Day is the full moon in the month of May, is the most sacred day to millions of Buddhists. That's right. If you're a Buddhist, today's your day. It was on this day of Vesak 2.5 millennia ago in the year 623 BC that the Buddha was born. It was also on this day that Vesak that Buddha attained enlightenment. And it was on the day of Vesak that Buddha is the 18th year passed away. The 18th. 80th. I can read. The 80th
Your
year.
original
So today
jolly
is the
fat
day
man.
Buddha, the best Buddhist of Buddha-ing today. Okay, so if you're follow the teachings of
The
Buddha and
original
you
Santa
didn't know,
Claus.
well, I'll let you know now. You probably knew it was Vesak Day before me needing to tell you. It's also
That's right.
Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations International Plant Health Day. So make sure your
Wow.
farms are
Too
healthy.
many.
You're staying away from those locusts and introducing great diversity of plants. Say no to
Suffering.
monoplanting. Say yes to biodiversity and plant local foods from your local region in order to increase the reliability of plants and their health. And finally, this week we are celebrating UN Global Safety Week. Road Safety Week is a biennial celebration by the WHO in which, make sure you drive safely on the road. Don't hit any pedestrians. That's the least you can do. Do not kill a child who's crossing the street because you're going 50 miles per hour
Try not to do that.
in a neighborhood. Don't do that. It's
Slow
not that hard,
down.
guys.
Slow down.
Don't drink.
No matter how fast you go, you're still on Earth.
Buckle
for the rest
up.
Of us.
Get your car checked for your brakes and make sure that your car works before you get on the road. And celebrate Global Road Safety Week here at the UN. And that's it. I'm done. That's all the things you need to know about today. Yeah,
Wow.
Road Safety Day is set by the Health Organization because it's about health, right? If people aren't getting hit by cars, everyone's healthy. Isn't that right? If people aren't dying in car accidents, pretty healthy.
UN really overdoing it. They're really overdoing it with the days, huh?
Yeah.
It's like too many at once.
To be fair, two of those are from Saturday that I forgot to cover. But this has been Allison from the Netherlands, Roger from the East Coast of the U.S. You got my link right for the video I sent you. I found actual video footage of this historical flight over the North Pole. That's right, they had cameras back then in 1926, so we're gonna see it
Oh yeah.
as it happened, as it was reported. This historical document here. So take care of yourselves for the rest of the day. Practice that road safety. Drink water. Wear sunscreen. Subscribe to the Ali Emerald channel. Make sure you have that notification on so you're here for tomorrow's Good Tuesday News Day. Every Tuesday, we cover some good and positive news to make everything seem worthwhile. And let's go to our mic drop moment. The flight over the North Pole. Historic. Look at it. It's so old. Black and white. Silent film. There's no audio. They didn't figure out the audio yet. Amudren and his friendly rival greet the party on arrival in the chantier. I think that's what that
I'm all
says.
excited because I want to see if they found Santa Claus.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, maybe that's when Christmas died.
Boats.
A little tugboat.
There's a picture of a boat and spilling water out of its bilge.
After 15 and a half hours flight, Commander Byrd arrives, claimed to have circled around the pole.
Well,
he claims. I like how they say he claimed to have done it. Like nobody. Good luck.
Good luck.
This is such a cute little silent film. Yeah. It's cold. You can see their breath.
There would have been a narrator narrating this. It would have been going.
Yeah, maybe you should do it. You probably do a better narrator voice than I do.
Before it gets on the ship, he would have talking really fast because the film would not.
Is that the ship I'm going to be flying? Yeah, you can fly in that.
Yeah, here I am.
Cold out here, ain't it? Yeah, it's pretty cold. We're just doing their voiceovers.
It's a Fokker. It's a Fokker plane.
It's a
Imagine
Fokker
that.
plane. Yeah.
That company still exists. I've flown on Fokker planes.
All right, guys, I'm going in. All right, good luck. Take care out there. I'm flying over. Oh, there's two ships.
See you later, Fokker. Yeah, again, we're celebrating Buddha today, who was the original jolly fat man. So, and this guy is going to find Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's totally why this mission exists. Yeah, they're on the search for Santa.
Absolutely. He didn't get no presents last year, and he wants to know why.
He wants to give him a piece of his mind.
Yeah,
all right, they're taking off.
That was a good
it's
boy.
white. The only thing you can see is how they made it off. They made it off the ground. Take off successful.
Look, and he went over to his North Pole and said, "Look, I discovered that it's full of ice."
I saw nothing. I saw absolutely nothing. Oh, he's returning. That was quick. Quick flight.
He did not actually take a camera on the plane. It probably just didn't have room for it, right?
Yeah, I think cameras in 26 were not built to be moving. They were very stationary objects. So.
Although, I think you could still film while you were in an airplane. You just had to crank it by hand. You didn't need power,
but I think it would have been like really wriggly, and you just wouldn't be able to see anything. I think you would detach some of the contact. The negatives would get all loose, and then you'd ruin your film.
Meanwhile, here's all these people trying to...
They're running across the ice. Congratulations! Yes, I did it. I saw it. I saw the polar bears. They're out there. Congratulations, sir. Woo! Yeah, wave your hat. We're waving our hats. That's an interesting thing to do. They did like spiraling it over the head like that instead of like...
Didn't bring back any elves or anything.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.